بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على خير خلق الله نبينا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أما بعد. The author Al-Hafiz Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah says Al-Kaba'ir al-Hadiya wal-Thalathun, major sin number 31, عدم التنزه من البول وهو شعار النصارى, not cleansing oneself from urine, from the filth of urine, not protecting oneself from urine. And this is the trademark of the Christians. He says it's the trademark of the Nasara, of the Christians. قال الله تعالى, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ, and clean your thiyab, clean your garments. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ومر بقبرين إنهما يعذبان وما يعذبان في كبير أما أحدهما فكان لا يستنزه من بوله وأما الآخر فكان يمشي بالنميمة متفق عليه. ولكن أكثر الطرق التي في الصحيحين لهذا الحديث فكان لا يستتر من بوله. وعن أنس رضي الله عنه عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أنه قال تنزهوا من البول فإن عامة عذاب القبر منه، رواه الدارقطني. ثم إن من لم يحترز من البول في بدنه وثيابه فصلاته غير مقبولة. He says here, major sin number 31, عدم التنزه. It's not refraining from urine, regardless whether it means not cleaning yourself or allowing it to splash on your clothes, your body, or anything like this. Both meanings. When a person uses the bathroom and he or she does not clean themselves, whether it's with water or whether it's with something that's dry, whether it's something dry and wet at the same time, not cleansing oneself from urine. That's the first concept. Second concept is a person could cleanse themselves from urine, but the urine splashes on their shoes, or their socks, or their pants leg, or their throat. Everybody saying this? This is also included in this chapter. And the word عدم التنزه. لم يقول عدم الاستنجاء عدم التطهر. لا يتنزه. لا يبتعد. He's not removed from his urine. Everybody understand this? Rather, even deeper than that, one could say urine and not necessarily his, someone else's urine. Everybody understand this? Not cleaning yourself from someone else's what? Urine. There are many different issues that pertain to that once you open up that door. Everybody understand this? All different types of things. Animals, certain pets, certain types of sexual acts, intimacy, medicine, all different types of things when you deal with someone else's. Everybody understand this? But now we're just talking about a person's own urine, not cleaning themselves or allowing it to splash on their clothes or their body. He says that's this sin right here. And this was the practice of the Nasara. Why would a people who claim to love God, who claim to devote themselves to the teachings of God and to the teachings of Christ, and this, how could this be their way? But for one reason or another, it was their way. Especially during his time, in the medieval time. As his teacher, Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah, mentioned that there were some people who would go for 40 days without washing. 40 whole days without having water on their skin. And they would hold it as a means of pride, like a merit. You know, this was a religious symbol, going days without any water. Whether it was the religious practice that they made, or whether it was from the extreme ignorance and negligence, they just didn't care, they just didn't know. One way or another, it was the what? Trademark of the Nasara. And even to this day, the concept of the Western culture, the urinal, standing up, not getting into the concept of showing your odor in front of other people, Is it healthy to urinate standing up? And all those other things. But just the concept of that's the standard practice. You stand at the urinal, there's no tissue, there's no water, there's no istinja, there's what? Shake, shake. That's it. And you go on about your business. Now, for men and also maybe among women who even sit down. So that's the standard culture. So not all things in the modern Western world, because there are many things that come directly from polytheists and the shirk of the Romans and the Greek. Okay? But many things, or when we say most things, come from the modern world of Christendom in America. Practices of the Christians, days of the week, foods, drinks, all different things are from the Catholic Church, the Orthodox Church, the Christian world. So from those common practices is how people use the bathroom to this day in modern times, showing what he's saying. This was the trademark of the what? Of the Nasara. And only Allah knows if it was a concept of the Jews or other people of other faiths, how would it be different? How would it be what? Different. That's why you find certain places in America, whether it's down south or in the west or this place or that place, in which is strong Christian, Bible thumpers, and which circumcision isn't that commonly practiced. It's not a normal thing for people to be circumcised. Why not? Because they're further away from what? From the Jews. They're further away from what? From the Yahud. This is their practice. The circumcision. Everybody understand this? This was something that the Jews kept from their original forefather, Abraham. And also it was passed on to his children. But for one reason or another, the Jews what? Certain things they stopped doing. And certain things the Jews what? Kept practicing. That was from their forefather, Abraham alayhi salam. He circumcised himself. And we know that the Yahud in general, there were people who had ilm, they had knowledge. They weren't ignorant, they weren't stupid, they weren't foolish. They had knowledge of the scriptures. The prophets and the messengers came from them. The Christians were the exact what? Opposite. Ignorance. And in relation to the Yahud. So, just trying to prove a point here. Back in his times, and even to this day, it's the trademark what? Of the Christians not being clean. And there are many things that you do on a daily basis in the American culture that come from the Jewish practice. And there are many things you do on a daily basis in the American culture where it's the exact what? Exact opposite. Everybody understand this? Very important concept. Meats, all different types of things that you do. That the people have ran away from the Jewish way. And you go to places where there are more Jews, Judaism is practiced one way or another, and you find it closer to what? Sharia. You find it closer what? To our Sharia. Certain places you go in Brooklyn, certain concepts with the Jews, kosher foods, washing their hands, you find it closer what? Sharia. Look at the beard. The what? The beard. All types of things. Everybody understand this? We don't have to drive this home any further. So that's the meaning of this chapter heading. He says, Allah the Exalted says, and clean your garments. وَثِيَابَكَ فَطَهِّرْ. In Surah Al-Muddathir, Allah says in the first verse, and clean your thiyab. He's using this verse to state the obligation of cleaning one's clothes from dirt, from urine, from blood, from anything that's bad. And many of you with knowledge, they say that this ayah is not talking about actual physical clothes. Rather, thiyab is talking about a'mal, actions. And that the Arabs, they metaphorically used clothes to mean deeds. Fulan has good clothes. Fulan has clean clothes. Fulan is clothed. He clothes himself. In other words, he's pious, righteous. He does not lie. He's not a womanizer. He doesn't gamble. He doesn't drink. He doesn't do this. Actual thiyab. And in other texts from Kitab and Sunnah, in which this is used, the concept of clothing and what? Deeds. Such as the hadith, and some ulama, they say this actually talking about what? Actual clothes. Hadith number 212. The Prophet ﷺ passed by two graves and he said, وَمَا يُعَذَّبَانِ فِي كَبِيرٍ. They were being punished. The Prophet was allowed to know about their torture, their torment. Did he hear? Did he see? Al-Muhim, Allah gave him the knowledge that they were being tortured. He told the Sahaba they were being tortured, and they aren't being tortured for kabir, something that's quote unquote major. They're not being punished for something that is major. He says one of them never protected himself from his urine, and the latter never protected himself from namima. He went around chattering and quacking. Fulan, fulan, fulana, fulan, fulan, fulana. This masjid, that masjid, sheikh, la la la. That was his practice. People need to be aware of this. You know, realize how the shaitan is just doodling them around, playing with them in his hand as if, using them to do this horrible act in the name of the deen. One masjid to the next. What he said that in this masjid, and this masjid, and this masjid, and oh well, I don't know, I'm not saying, but you know, who namima? It's namima, causing Muslims, causing people not to like each other, to hate each other, to fight against each other in the name of Islam. There's no difference. Gossiping. He says, and this hadith is agreed upon by Al-Bukhari and Muslim. He says, but most of the versions in Sahihain state, فَكَانَ لَا يَسْتَتِرُ مِنْ بَوْلِهِ. He never protected himself from his urine. In other words, the part of the hadith that says, أَلَا إِنَّهُ, إِنَّهُ, he says, indeed it is kabir. Because the hadith says that it wasn't a major sin. It wasn't something big. Everybody understand? We've explained this before. Some of the scholars, they say that it wasn't kabir to avoid. It wasn't major to stay away from. What stops you from cleaning yourself when you use the bathroom? It literally takes 2 seconds. What stops you from being cautious when you use the bathroom and not allowing it to splash everywhere? What stops you from putting a lid on your mouth and stop gossiping about fulan and fulana? Everybody understand this? It's not that hard to stay away from. And others, they say, they weren't the greatest sins. They were major sins, but they weren't the stealing, killing, murder, or wealth of the orphan. And others, they say that it wasn't kabir in their eyes, what they thought. But to Allah, it was. And another version of the hadith states, rather, bel, it is a kabir, a major sin. And the Prophet ﷺ received revelation that it was. Khairan, inshallah. Hadith number 213. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said that the Messenger of Allah ﷺ stated, Tanazzahu min al-bawl. He says, stay away from urine. Remove yourselves from urine. Protect yourselves from urine. Because most of the punishment in the grave comes therefrom. So the main reason why people be punished in the grave is because of their being lax when it comes to urine. So these two hadiths, they clearly prove, hadith ibn Abbas and Anas, is that it's going to be a punishment hereafter. Proves that the act is a major sin. He says, and those who do not protect themselves from urine in their clothes and their body, he says, then their prayer is invalid. غَيْرُ مَقْبُولَةٍ. The salah is what? غَيْرُ مَقْبُولَةٍ. It is not accepted. Here he's speaking on a technical issue of the shurut, of the conditions of the salah, the prerequisites of the salah. And from those prerequisites is a person must be clean in his clothes, his body, and the garment upon which he prays. And this is the view that Al-Dhahabi takes, and many other ulama they take. And other ulama they say, rather, this is incorrect. That the prayer that a person makes with filth, physical filth on him, is valid, but he gets sick. They say that it's haram to do it. It's a wajib to avoid, لكن ليست من الشروط. لا تتعلق بالصحة والفساد والإجزاء. بدليل حديث أبي سعيد الخدري الذي روى أبو داود أن النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام صلى بنعليه كان فيهما أذى ففي أثناء الصلاة ماذا صنع؟ خلعهما ثم صحابة الكرام رضوان خلعوا نعلهم لما سلم عليه الصلاة والسلام قال ما حملكم على هذا على خلعكم النعال قالوا رأيناك خلعتنا عليك قال إن جبريل عليه السلام أتاني فأخبرني أن فيهما إلى آخر الحديث. محل الشاهد من الحديث لو كان هذا من شروط صحة الصلاة ماذا فعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم؟ لاستأنف إيش؟ لاستأنف صلى وفينا عليه قدر. فمعنى هذا أنه قد اعتد بما صلى في حال لبسه النعلين اللتين فيهما خبث وأذى. عرفت هذا؟ من أهل العلم من يقول هذا يدل على العكس أنه ليس من الشرائط بل الواجبات واجب فرض لكن ليس من الشرط. وكان من الشرط خلع النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم واستأنف الصلاة. ومن أهل العلم من يقول بخلاف ذلك. هذا من باب الفائدة. Some of the ulama, they say is that it is a condition of the salah. If you pray with urine on your clothes, your prayer is invalid. Khayran, inshallah. And that was the view of Al-Hafiz al-Dhahabi, the author, rahimahullah. May Allah protect us all. It was a very serious, dangerous issue that many of us take for granted on a daily basis. And the proof that we take it for granted, you just look at the bathroom in the masjid. The floor, the stain, the toilet, something's wrong. Something is extremely wrong. Okay? And it's something that is so simple and easy. That is from the basic concept of a Muslim, to be clean, to be a gentleman. How can you want your own filth to splash on you and not care? There lies no doubt something is wrong. If that's your attitude, if you allow urine to just be, a normal practice. Let alone the concept of wanting for your brother what you want for yourself. Someone else has to come behind you and use the bathroom. Someone else has to come behind you and smell that. Someone else has to come behind you. That's not loving for your brother what you love for yourself. Everybody clear on this? So Al-Dhahabi rahimahullah is stating here the harms of this sin. How one vice leads to a sister vice. Leads to another problem. Now, just like he mentioned about highway robbery, bandits, stick-up kids. He says most of the people, not only is it a sin in itself, they kill, they rob, they rape, he says, but most of them don't make salah. Most of them don't make salah. And when they get money from robbing somebody, they spend it on booze and women. They spend it on what? Booze and women. Like a movie, say Abandoned, a Western, or it's a real life concept. You want to get drunk. You want to chill and rape, spend the money. That's what they do. And we said this is the lifestyle of certain things. You're a professional basketball player. There's certain things that come with the what? With lifestyle. You're a lawyer, student of knowledge, whatever profession. There's certain things that just come with what? With lifestyle. Everybody understand this? Wallahu ta'ala.
Cheers.